Hello, good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm here to talk about something that has been at the core of my firm's success, and that is my awesome employees and making sure that they stay awesome. My name is Jose Calderon. I have a personal injury practice in Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas is one of the most competitive personal injury markets in the nation. It's very expensive if you want to market. It's very expensive. Anytime I consulted with a marketing firm, they always said, "Hey, it's going to be very expensive. You're in Houston," and there's firms they're spending hundreds of thousands, some millions every single month. And while we do have a modest marketing budget, we've learned that the best marketing is your current and past clients. You do a good job for them, you go above and beyond, and they're going to refer you more clients, and then it's a snowball effect. Those clients send you more, and those send you more, and then the original clients keep sending you, and then hopefully they're writing you Google reviews. But at our firm, we believe that in order to be able to give good customer service, we must give great employee service. In other words, making sure our staff is happy, making sure they have all the tools that they need in order for them to better do their job. All right, so growing up, I always heard this term work culture, and I always wonder, what is that? What's a work culture? When you think of culture, I think of a part of the world or a religion or a group of people. So I had a few jobs before I started my own firm. I clerked at 3 or 4 different firms. I worked at 2 other ones, and I realized that most of these firms, they didn't quite have a culture. Not only that, but they didn't really have, they didn't really take care of their employees, and as far as providing not just guidance, opportunities, appreciation. For example, my first job out of law school, I got recruited by a very prestigious firm, and I went right to the top in personal injury, working on the most complex, the hardest cases. These are, 8-figure cases, that take years to develop, that are often very complicated. And I was very happy to have the job, but I was kind of thrown into the wolves, right? Which I think is great to a certain extent, but there's a lot of times where I didn't have what I call the open door policy. I didn't really have anyone to go ask questions, and a lot of times a couple minutes conversation could have saved me a lot of hours, of figuring it out. And then when I did figure it out and I did do the legwork on a matter, I didn't get the opportunity to argue that motion, take that deposition, or even try that case. And then when it came to support, I had a paralegal and I had a secretary, and these people, they had been at this firm for a very long time. They knew that no matter what, they were never going to get fired. So of course, me being the baby lawyer, they didn't do anything that I asked. And so oftentimes I was scheduling, my own depositions. I was writing my own letters, formatting my own documents. And that's on top of my regular legal work that I'm supposed to be doing. And I would complain to my boss about it, and he would make excuses for them. And he even admitted, I can't let them go, or else who would take care of them? And I wasn't the only young associate going through this. So, you have your young associates who, full of anxiety, hundreds of thousands in law school debt, starting families, and they're working nights and weekends just to be able to get their work done. And I told myself, whenever I go out on my own, we're going to do things differently. This is not a way to build a successful practice, especially in an uber competitive market. So the first year of my firm, I didn't have any staff, try to keep costs low. And then I ended up having my first 2 hires. And I'm happy to say they're both with me today. In fact, they each have a sister that's also working with me to this day. And I got really lucky with these hires because they're amazing, and they truly are one of the reasons why our firm launched, because they were able to do all the other things, all the legwork on these cases so that I could focus on what I was doing. And as you know, unfortunately, not everyone you hire is going to be the best. So it's very important to put a lot of effort and thought. And we do a lot of research on who we hire, and our hiring process is very extensive. And sometimes, unfortunately, we get it wrong. People show up in interviews and they're not who they say that they are. And unfortunately, it's the worst part of my job, but I got to let them go because it's important for the culture. Because people, if the rest of your team is kicking butt and some people aren't, then that's just going to cause problems. So the sooner you let them go, the better. Another reason why we try to hire all based off of referrals. So, right now, like I said, we have two pairs of sisters, a pair of cousins, and we have a lot of former friends and ex-coworkers of current employees. And my thought with this is, well, I hope my staff really like it here, or else why are they bringing the people they most care about to come here? And also, I don't think that my current staff would want to jeopardize what they have going on here, by bringing someone who would be a bad fit. And honestly, from what I can remember, any referral, anyone that we didn't get off Indeed or off a website or off a posting, they've worked out for the best. Anyways, when I was interviewing my first two case managers, I interviewed, hundreds applied. I interviewed a dozen or so. Of the people that I interviewed, when I got them in, I said, why are you leaving where you're at? And almost none of them said more money. Very few of them said, oh, I don't like my boss, or my supervisor is, a B or whatever. Most of them were leaving because they had too many cases. Like 75%, no kidding, like 75% were saying, man, I just have too many cases. I have, hundreds of cases, and not only am I working overtime, but I'm having trouble like keeping up with the load, and I'm looking for, for something lighter. I'm looking for somewhere different. And well, that wasn't really a problem here because I had just opened and I didn't have too many cases. So that wasn't a problem yet. But anyway, about my case managers. So in our pre-litigation department, which is our bigger department, the way we see our case managers is kind of like the heart of the firm. I mean, they're the ones that are touching the files every day. They're the ones that are making sure that the cases are developing. They're the ones who are interacting with the client. They're the ones who are texting them, calling them, making sure that they're keeping up, making sure that they're happy, that they're content, that they have everything that they need, that their questions are answered. And then myself and the people that do our marketing, we're there to make sure they have cases to work on. And then we have management. Management is there to make sure that our staff has the proper tools, that has the proper equipment, the proper software, like Filevine has been a game changer for us, making sure that we have the right hires, and make sure that they're getting taken care of, that they're properly compensated. And then we have the rest of the support staff that they're there to make sure and assist the case managers and going and pushing the cases along. So in order to properly support our staff, a very big deal is trainings. So we are constantly doing trainings, like almost on a weekly, and sometimes it's a full-blown training. Sometimes it's a micro training, and it's from every subject you can think of. Anything from the traffic laws, any different forms of treatment, or we had one recently on how to speak to a client. If a client says, "Hey, I'm having a problem with this, or I can't pay my rent," or whatever it may be, ways to diffuse situations. But we started kind of it took a little while to develop, but kind of like an encyclopedia of different, I hate to call them scripts because I like it to think that's a little bit more personal, but kind of ways that we can speak, because our clients, they're at their worst point in their life. They're hurt, their car probably doesn't work, most of them live paycheck to paycheck, and this accident really threw their life in a really difficult spot. So then we started getting more and more busy, and they were starting to get, the number of cases they had at their old firms, these case managers, and then stuff started falling through the cracks. And then customers, for the first time, we were getting some customer complaints. And so at that point, we had already grown, but I had these two case managers that were one of the pairs of sisters, and their family was moving out of state. So I said, hey, we're going to move with our parents. We're going to go move out of state. And I said, man, I hate to lose you, but I understand. And so I hired two more case managers because we were already kind of overloaded with work. And so I hired the two new case managers, and I had them overlap for a bit so they could get the proper training, and you know, I didn't want to get caught, you know, with not having enough staff to support our caseload. Well, they're about these two sisters are supposed to be leaving, and all of a sudden they say, hey, actually, we're not going to go with our parents, and we're going to stay behind. And I said, well, I'd already committed. Actually, I'd already hired, and these people had started, the new case managers. And so I wasn't, I couldn't, and they actually were turning out, I could tell that they were going to be good ones. And then these two sisters, I mean, they were amazing. And I said, we'll make it work. We'll figure it out, but yeah, of course you can stay. So what did we do? We divided the cases, you know, in between all of them. So now they all had a lot less cases. And what we learned is that we were still profitable. So the cases, in fact, we were more profitable because they had less cases to manage, which means they could pay more attention to them. They could touch every file, you know, every day or at least every week. You know, they could make sure that the cases were developing properly. And so cases were settling, our average settlement was higher. And also, our client satisfaction was higher than it's ever been. I mean, I would get into Filevine and some of the integrated apps that we integrate with, and I would read the text messages, and I would see, you know, my case manager somehow at the time, hey, how was that appointment? Hey, did you get your MRIs done? Did that pain managed procedure, how do you feel? Oh, thank you so much for checking on me. And when I read these messages, I look, you know, I have managers that really do the deep dives, but I comb the files. You know, I'm very hands-on still. And I would warm my heart. I was like, wow, like this is amazing. And, you know, and like we're, you know, even though we have more case managers than the average law firm and they have less cases per case manager, like it still works for us. And in fact, it's, I think, the best way to do it. So I always say, like, I always say the saying, and especially in personal injury, but really in anything in life, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. So I was interviewing these people from other firms where they were getting overloaded with files, and they were like 150, 200, you know, and they were getting paid less than, you know, below market, you know. So that might work for some people, like penny pinching, and really, like, you know, how many can we really put on there? How many cases can we really put on? But then they were telling me that some of the type of settlements and like the case values they were getting, and I was just saying, you know, there's a different way to do this where everyone is happy. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of work, and you have to constantly keep tweaking it, but this is how we decided that we were going to build our practice, is we were going to make sure that, you know, we were always going to have enough staff. We're not going to cheap out on staff. And if obviously, you know, it goes without saying, we want to get the best staff, and we want to, you know, make sure that they're taken care of. So, all right. So when our docket grows, our team grows. And in fact, like I said earlier, it can be really hard to find good hires. I mean, you will put an ad out on Indeed, and so many people. And a lot of them may be good applicants, but it's really impossible to really comb through all those and really find those gems that you're looking for. And then from those, you know, we do a phone interview at first just to make sure we're on the same page. Like, is this even, I don't want to waste their time coming down here. And then you interview them, and then like I said, a lot of times they just don't turn out to be who they say they are. You know, so like I said, if I find somebody through someone I used to work with who all of a sudden becomes available, or someone is recommended to me, and I can tell, okay, this one, like I have the feeling like this is going to be a good one, or I used to work with them and they were awesome. If I don't have a position, I will find one. I will get them, you know, because I may not need them now, but I will need them eventually. And good hires, I mean, they're hard to find. As far as pay, I mean, just last month, I called all of my colleagues, other people who have law firms, and I called them, hey, what are you paying? I want to make sure, I want to be above average. Whatever everyone else is paying, I want to pay a little bit more. And then we also do quarterly bonuses. And so you may have case managers that have the similar salary, but it's not fair, because this was another problem in my original firm, is I was working my butt off, and there was an associate there who was just watching Netflix in the middle of the day, and we talked about it, he got the same salary, the same exact bonus as me. That was demoralizing, and I said, that is not the way things should go. So while their salary may be similar, we do quarterly bonuses, and that's where a case manager who's really kicking butt, who's really, you know, going all in, they can really make that difference in compensation. And I decided to do quarterly bonuses because At my old firm, I only got one bonus at the end of the year, and like my thought, because I mean, my colleagues did it. Hey, I want to jump ship, but I'm gonna wait because I got that bonus at the end of the year. And my whole thought is like, if you don't want to be here, like I don't want you here. Like I don't want you to wait for the end of the year. So that's why we and quarterly bonuses, it'll be a mix. And again, we sit down with the management, and it'll be a mix of performance-based. And also profit sharing. Like if the firm had a very good quarter, we got to give some love to the support staff and to everybody, to the whole team. Healthcare. We have healthcare, dental, vision, 401k. Another lawyer that I know who has his own practice. He does lunches every Friday, and I think I'm better than him. So if you're doing lunches every Friday, I'm buying lunches every Friday for my staff too. And then we have a certain culture where we like to have fun. We work hard and we play hard. And that includes, we go out to dinners, and then when we do happy hours, so for these happy hours, what we do is, first of all, if you're drinking, the firm pays for your Uber from your work to the office. And some of these ladies, they must really like working here because they drive an hour and a half. They drive an hour. This is Houston. That's kind of extreme for Houston, but a lot of them regularly 30 minutes, 40 minutes, but some of them an hour and a half, and they're happy to say, it's fine, Jose, it's fine. And so we pay for the Uber there, we cater lunch, we provide transportation to wherever the venue is, and then they have their corporate account. Whenever they want to go home, they take an Uber. I mean, how horrible would that be if, God forbid, something happened? And so far, no one's gotten like too crazy or anything, but that's the type of the things that we do. We had a really good quarter recently, and a lot of them had never been to an Astros game. So we got a Sprinter van, we got very good tickets, we went out to dinner before, just because we had that good quarter. And obviously, it's not just about like compensation or benefits, because that is important. I always say, look, we spend a lot of time away from our families. Let's make sure you're compensated, but let's also make sure we make this environment as fun as possible and as pleasant as possible. So a lot of it is how you speak to your staff. Like I'll never forget my past, and I would get yelled at in front of the whole firm. Like, oh, you did this, you didn't do this, and I said that you'd feel like crap, and I'll never. It's the feelings that I remember, not exactly what they said, but how I felt like when they said it. And I said, man, I'm never going to speak to my staff like that. There's a way to do it because we're not perfect. Things fall through the cracks. We mess up on things. We forget to order certain medical records, And now we're at the point where my staff will be like, hey, I messed up. I did not order those medical records. I should have ordered 3 months. I messed up. And they'll come up to me, I'll say it, and they'll know. We'll have a talk about it, and we'll see why did this happen, and and we'll talk about why this can't happen. Now, this case is delayed. Our client is, upset, but that's, I have an open door policy. Anyone from the receptionist to management to the other lawyers, anybody, you can come meet and talk about it, whether it's personal, whether it's about work, whether there's a specific case. So, case managers, they just come in to my office. Hey, I have 5 cases, I'd like to go over, that have some situations going on. And that's why, and it's important to be available because I'm a young firm. I've been open 3 years as of last week. Last Friday was my 3-year anniversary. So, I'm practicing a lot longer, but our firm's only been open that long. So we're a young firm. We're always learning. We're always adapting. I'm new at being an employer. I'm new at this, but I've learned that I enjoy it more than what I used to litigate a lot more than I do now, and I enjoy this part more because it's really rewarding to take care. Most of my staff, they didn't go to college. I said, don't worry. Except for the lawyers, you don't have to go to college. I can teach you this. I can teach you what we do. You have to pay attention and the detail. What I cannot teach them is that customer service. That I tell them when I hire them, look, you got to be in the people business. You are going to be speaking to, if you're not, and that's why I love people with customer service background. People that work at cell phone kiosks, best hires. I mean, they deal with, man, my photo won't download, and my phone won't charge. I need a new one now. So that's what I tell them from the beginning. I said, if you cannot deal with people at their worst, then this is not the right place for you. you know? And I try to tell them, you need to care about these people because, you know, find something else. I always say, find something else than the money to motivate you, because if it's just money, you'll get burnt out. Because this is not an easy job. You know, you are dealing with people that are going through a tough time. You know, and another rule that I have, though, is if a client disrespects you, and everyone is their own judge of that, if they hang up the phone on you, they yell at you, they curse you, I need to know about it. I need to know about it right away. I will call that client, and I will give them one chance. I will give them one chance. I said, you cannot do that. If you do that one more time, you're fired. Go find another law firm, but you're out of here. You know, so, and we did have a client who he had the second strike, and the case manager was like, no, please don't fire him. He's fine. He's really not that bad. I said, that's my rule, and I'm a man of my word. So what we did is we settled this case because it was about to settle. It was about to settle, and we divided that attorney's fees amongst the staff as like a bonus for everybody, you know. But it's important to have your staff's back, and it's important to, like I said, empower them when something that they don't teach. It's not in a book. It's not in school. Is how do you speak to people that are going through a very tough time in their life? And it goes without saying that we are always investing in our systems. We vetted a lot of case management softwares. We ended up with Filevine. I'm very grateful. You know, another thing that I always tell my staff is we are always evolving. We are always changing things up. So if that's not good for you, then you're in the wrong place, because again, this is a super competitive market, and we always say that we're humble. Humble to us means that we know we're one of the best, but we know to stay here, we have to always be learning. We always have to be adapting and looking for those. And that's why we're here. That's why I have some of my staff here. We're at this conference, see what else is out there. So, and we're not cheap. We'll invest in whatever the best systems are, because I want to make their job as easy as possible. They are managing dozens of cases that have various parts to them. No case is exactly alike, no matter what. No case is exactly alike, and they all have moving parts. And I don't know how they do it. They keep track of everything, but part of the way they do it is with our systems and with our software. You know, and these Filevine tasks. You know, they finally understand now, because you know we all learn Filevine together. Is that these tasks is not to make your job harder. It's not to make your job annoying. Oh, I'm behind on my task. I have so many to do. It's to help you so you don't have to remember everything. Like, did I do that? Did I order that? Did I get the police report? You know, did I make sure the client went to their first visit? You know, did I send this early demand because, you know, this is a case with multiple claimants? So these are all like reminders, again, not to make their job more difficult, but make their job easier so that, you know, they can manage these cases better. Another thing is, I don't like to use the word boss. I don't like, can we go back a slide? I don't like to use the term boss. Again, it's part of the culture, you know, because I'm there every day. It's a young firm, and I have not just there to keep my eyes on them, because when I'm on vacation, God bless them, they are trucking. I can see it, you know, I can see in Filevine, things are happening, you know, but I have my job too. You know, my job, if there's an upset client, you know, they know we have a chat. We have a separate chat for clients that want to talk to the lawyer, and I speak to them. And I always tell them as well, if there's ever a conversation you think is better for me to have, like they're super angry about their car not getting fixed or they're not complying with treatment, if there's ever something like you think is better for me, that's my job. That's what I'm here for. Because unfortunately, sometimes clients, they listen more when it's me telling them to do something versus the case manager. But that's part of my job. You know, another term I don't like to use, you work for me. You know, this person works for me. I don't like that term. This person works with me. When I introduce somebody, this person works with me because we work together. I'm a soldier. I'm on the battlefield too. You know, I'm there, you know, on the battlefield with I may be at the front, but I'm there. And I'm there with them behind me, and that's, again, part of our culture. I mean, maybe one day, you know, I always joke, you know, when I hit that $30 million case, I'll be in the Bahamas. You know, you'll never hear from me again, but I'm not anywhere close to that. And right now, I'm having too much fun, you know, doing what I do, taking care of the employees so that they can take care of the clients. Because when our clients come get their settlement checks, can I go say hi to the case manager? Can I go see Helen? Can I go see Alondra? Like, Alondra was, and they come to me. I want you to know Alondra was magnificent. You know, I want you to know that y'all did a very good job. You know, because, a lot of law firms, for whatever reason, they struggle to give this customer service, And I think a lot of it is because they're penny pinching. Hey, I want to have less, because staff is the most expensive. It's your biggest expense. And a lot of them, unfortunately, and this kind of, to me, like I kind of learned it as I went, especially when those 2 case managers didn't go. I said, wow, like we're working even better. And like, I'm still, there's still some, we're still making money. So like I said, and another way to think about it is, that I think about it at least, is like I could go with my competitors and spend hundreds of thousands, get billboards all over town like a lot of them do. But, when we opened, we grew kind of at that right pace because, believe it or not, car wrecks is kind of our bread and butter. People get in car wrecks all the time, and their friends, and their family, and their coworkers, and then they get another one. I can't tell you how many times I had clients that have had a lawyer in the past, and they said, oh, I don't remember his name. And I told them, my goal for you is you'll never forget my name. And again, part of that is giving them that service, and we cannot give. That's why I said at the beginning, our success starts with our employees being happy. So just as important as our management has to make sure they're doing their job, we have to make sure that they're happy and have everything they need to give their jobs. So we must provide employee service to give great employee service to give great customer service. Well, that is all I have for you today. But thank you so much for listening to my talk.